Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and operator of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you want to call in your hand, check out the phone number in the description.
Two players, one limp under the gun, one limp middle position. In front of me, I'm on the button. Both of them I would characterize as weak tight.
Okay.
So I bet 30 with ace of diamonds, king of clubs on the button. Blinds fold, both limpers call.
So limp, you've got ace, king off on the button, and they both call.
Yep, I have the king of clubs.
Ace of diamonds, king of clubs. Okay, yeah.
The flop is jack of clubs, 6 of diamonds, 2 of clubs.
Okay.
Check, check. I bet 55.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those times where, a lot of times you say in a game where if they're weak or not very good or not very aggressive, if it's close, you bet. So that's what I had in mind when I bet the flop there.
Yeah, and also, too, because you keep telling me you got the king of clubs, I'm assuming that you are thinking about firing over cards, Broadway equity on the turn, and then just running across clubs, right? And also, too, you said the guys are weak tight, right? So obviously you can start a bluff. Yeah.
So the turn is the 6 of diamonds.
So what happens? Do they both call or just one guy calls?
Oh, I'm sorry. UTG calls, middle position folds.
So 110. It's about 200, right?
Yep.
Okay. So what's the turn?
The turn is another 6. Another 6.
Not a club, obviously.
Right.
Okay.
So at this point, I was going to get your thoughts. I know that you say in these low stakes games, mid to low stakes, you're not into moving people off top pair. Mm-hmm. So what do you think about this card?
Well, remember positional awareness on the flop, right? I mean, this guy should be stronger than if the other guy had called, right? Like, he called in between. So, right? Isn't that right? He's under the gun. The other guy's behind him on the flop, right? So he really shouldn't have, like, a pair here with a guy behind him. Like, I don't even know. This is like sort of what the term we talk about a little bit in top section, though. Like, you sort of share responsibility for defending in multi-way pots with the other guy. So he doesn't have to defend really as light here with like 7s, 8s, 9s. Now, again, like, people don't necessarily know that, but they know that there's a guy behind them. So as opposed to like you betting and it going fold and then the guy who overlimped MP1 calling, MP1, if he was the one that called, he could have like pocket 3s here, right? 4s and 5s. I would call with those hands, especially too if you look at the distribution of the board. There's some backdoor straight draws in there. If I was MP1 and I somehow overlimped with 3s and you c-bet the flop and then the other guy folded, I would call with 3s, closing the action. But this guy's in the middle. So I definitely like a double barrel if it was against MP1. Or you could ramp up a double barrel against MP1 and just play it like, man, this guy's like super capped. He's going to raise off pocket deuces, right, as a set some of the time on the flop. Now there's less combos of pocket 6s, right, now that the turn comes. But here, I like the idea of starting this bluff with ace of diamonds, king of clubs, and then continuing the bluff quite liberally against just an MP1 defend on the flop. But this is probably the worst of all worlds. I mean, you can't just always double barrel, so I think that this one's probably the situation, everything adds up to be probably not good for you here. No equity picked up on turn. Guy calls next to act. I would probably just check.
All right, well, that was my mistake because I went through it slightly backwards, thinking that if he did call with one of the pairs, a lot of times you'll see them limp early and call a raise with those lower pairs. Mm-hmm. And I figured he would raise off, like you said, the deuces. So I was like, well, I might be able to fold out some of those pairs, or he's on maybe like ace x of clubs. So I was hoping that if he had the clubs, he's calling, and I fold out. So I bet 155.
But again, though, do you think that he's calling with 3s, 4s, 5s? Let's say that he's limping with 8s and below. Okay. Let's say 7s and below. Okay. Do you think that he's going to call with 3s, 4s, 5s, and 7s with a guy next to act behind him on the flop?
No.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
no, it makes
really
a
what
lot
the
of sense.
key is. I mean, that's why it's a
Yep,
better double barrel against the guy that's closing the action on the flop, not here. So you bet 155.
yep. And he tried to, get a soul read, stare me down for a while, and then he slowly called again.
So hero 155 call. So now the pot is what, like 500?
Let's see. Yeah, there was 200. Yep. So
Yeah,
another 300. Yep. 500.
yeah.
And so the river's an offsuit 3,
Okay.
and he takes his time and he checks. So
I mean, his
now what
hand
do you think?
seems to look a lot like a jack here, like Jack 10 suited, right? Queen Jack, something like that. Jack 9. You block King Jack and Ace Jack. So, I mean, I'm probably not going to get in this spot all that often, but if somehow, like, the turn had brought you some sort of equity or you thought it was a good spot to double barrel turn, like, say, for example, this guy was the actual MP1, not the under the gun, right? Like, and, you had bet and, UTG had folded and MP1 had called, and you're like, well, I double barrel turn. And I'm like, okay, now the river's a 3. I mean, it's just a question of do you think he can fold a jack? Because most people are, like you said, they're a lot of times they're going to raise off. And actually, this guy probably is going to raise off more often with a set, I believe, with a guy behind him, too. It's not like he's closing the action. So I would expect if he was in MP1, he actually might have more slow plays here because the guy, obviously to his right had folded, but he was next to act, right, on the flop. Um, so I mean, you're looking at quad sixes, right, and like pocket deuces. I'm throwing out the possibility that he's got pocket jacks. So he has a lot of jacks here. I mean, a lot of jacks. I guess he could have 6x of clubs too, but again, I think that that's somewhat, um, somewhat. I don't know if he's got that from up front, and I think he's going to raise those hands off. And then too, I guess you could say you have some showdown value on the flip side, right? You've got some showdown value against the nut flush draw, or like a Broadway flush draw. Although you do have the king of clubs, so he can't have king queen of clubs. But if you had like queen 10 of clubs or some shit like that, right? Um, you have showdown value against that. My inclination here is when he calls on the board pairs on the turn that he's very, very jack heavy, and then just the question becomes like, is he going to fold? But I wouldn't construct a double barrel though here. I don't think it's a good double barrel. So what happened?
Yeah, yeah. I think the key. Thanks for just knowing that it would have worked better against MP1 versus
Yeah,
the UTG caller.
yeah.
So that helps. I thought, hey, if he has a jack, I'm beat. I don't think I could move him off just on kind of playing with him for a while. So.
Mm-hmm.
I hoped he had clubs. I thought we'll have some showdown value. I called. He had ace queen of clubs.
So check, right?
So I was, yep, check.
Yeah.
Yep. I had your voice going through my head say it's not. I don't try to move people off top pair in these games. So I thought I was just going to give up. And I thought, well, if I do have, if he is on clubs, I'll win anyway. So I was just curious. That helps me understand the spot on the turn as well as the river now.
Yeah. Also, too, the other thing too is that like say for example, you had and this actually just goes a little thing at the end. Like your hand does have a modicum of showdown value, right? Where you could probably, if you constructed these ranges like in solvers or things like that, Ace King is a far superior. You could make a case that Ace King is a check here. But let's say, for example, you had King Queen of diamonds, right? And you started a bluff on the flop like it was Jack 6 deuce with one diamond, and then you continue to bet turn, for the reasons we talked about.
Right.
Obviously you have to bluff king queen. Well, I mean, I think
Right.
that at that point that's going to be a bluff with king queen. But here with
Okay.
ace king you can win against the nut flush draw, which you did. So the question is whether or not it's superior to bluff ace king here or check it. Definitely bluffing king queen is better than checking king queen. So
Right.
that's the other thing.
Yeah,
too.
that was the other question, whether this was a mandatory bet on the river or not, and I just went with the check because at least half of it I thought would be winning against the clubs, which it did. So
Yeah.
that was why I called this hand in.
Yep. All right, man. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out CrushLivePoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA200. Click on the link right there.